Okay, I think we're on to 2 o'clock, so we'll call this meeting to order and get started on it. So we can all move on to the next things today. Hopefully enjoying some of that sunshine without all the excessive heat. Anyways, first thing on our agenda is to adopt the agenda. So I have a recommendation here, moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the agenda for the June 14th, 2021 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor? Carried. We'll move on to disclosure of pecuniary interest. I don't have anything in regard to today's agenda. Councillor Burke?
No.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
And Councillor Yake?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have a presentation from 88.7 The River. Do we have Rob and Chris with us? There's Rob. I see his face pop up. Hello, Rob. Welcome.
Hello.
Is Chris joining you as well?
Chris is.
He's on there somewhere.
Okay, we'll just wait a second.
He just needs to turn his camera on and his mic on.
He's a pretty smart guy. He'll figure it out.
He's done Zoom before, I know.
There he is.
Hey, Chris, welcome.
Hello.
So welcome, gentlemen. And whenever you're ready, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Sure. Now, does anybody have the PowerPoint that we can?
Yep, I'll share the screen and you can just
Perfect.
tell me when you want me to move forward, when you want me
Okay,
to
sounds good.
slide forward.
So Chris and I are going to kind of tag theme this. There's only about 6 or 7 slides, so it won't take a whole lot of your time. I do appreciate you taking some time out of this meeting to have us update you on what's going on at the river. Our first slide, if you want to go to the next slide there, Karen. This is all of our history to date. It goes way back actually to 2010 when the town was first approached by Dave Barrett. He was at the time working with the SEDC out of Ayton, and he just came to see if there's any interest in establishing a community station here in town. The council of the day obviously agreed, and they were kind enough to put up some upfront money to the CRTC so we could get the application applied, or the license applied for. 2013, 2 years later, we were granted the license. It usually takes about that long, so nothing out of the ordinary there. CRTC granted the license. At that time, we were given 2 years to be on the air, and it took us all of that to get a test signal up on November 23rd, 2015. We actually went live with announcers and commercials and all that good stuff. We were at that time also set up inside of Plume's Main Street Interiors, running out of that one little office. That was pretty tight, but got the job done. And then during that first couple of months on the air, we actually ran a contest for listeners to name the station, which was very popular, and it was unanimous. It wasn't even close. The river won by a long shot. So ever since then, we've been 88.7 The River. When we first went on the air live, we were actually calling ourselves Saugeen Community Radio, the new 88.7. So the river is much shorter. I appreciate that. 2 years after that, we actually got into our permanent location here at 248 Main Street North, and the building is now owned by the Mount Forest Chamber. So we're slowly but surely outgrowing this spot too. So stay tuned. And then fast forward again to 2020, we were fortunate enough to pay back all of our debt that we had accrued in the first 4 or 5 years to get up and running. We paid all that back in the first 5 years, and we now run debt free. If anybody wants a copy of our financial statements, I'm certainly able to send one to you. I got one right here. If anybody wants to see it, I can forward it on, and they're done by BDO here in town. We celebrated our 5th anniversary in 2020, not quite the way we wanted to, of course, thanks to certain COVIDs and things. We wanted to do a big live concert in conjunction with the Lions, and that'll still happen. We're just not sure exactly when. And luckily, the CRTC extended our license for another 7 years, so we're good now until August of 2027. I'm going to throw it to Chris for some people we work with and some of the employees here.
Folks, we have a partnership with the Brand radio station in Center Wellington that provides us with our local news coverage. We have the 2 news voices, different for the morning and the afternoon. 88.7, we're obviously a community radio station, not commercial, so all the profits go back into the community. Staff at the station, we have full and part-timers currently. General Manager Rob Mattice, Office Administrator Paula Reed, we have salesperson Robert Raymond, local content program coordinator Chris Holden, that's me, and Lauren West is here right now. Myself and Lauren are working here on grants from the Community Radio Fund of Canada and the Canada Summer Jobs Program, respectively. Rob also hosts the weekday morning show from 6 to 10 a.m., including segments co-hosted with local volunteer Lee Best. The morning show is gaining in popularity thanks to the daily highlight videos posted to our social media. If you've seen those on Facebook or YouTube, we usually take a 3 or 4 minute clip from the morning show every day of the week and stick that online as well. Obviously gets us a bit further reach than just the radio station's local airwaves can go. And then the next slide, please. I get to co-host the River Ride Home afternoon show along with local volunteer Eric McLeod. We also do an hour-long weekly combat sports review and preview show, which I'm sure you all listen to. You all know about Low Blow Radio. Other on-air personalities from in and around town include Kendra Goss, Brian Campbell, John Patrick, Len Robinson, Rosalind Fortier, Sam and Robin Pennessy, Murray Calder, Don Lewis, Bob and Jamie Radojican. Help me with the pronunciation, Rob. I don't know that. Thank you. And Laura Kinsley. We have lots of volunteers, and we're always looking to grow that base of community volunteerism as well. The River's board of directors include Sean McLeod, Dale Small, Taylor Coonan, Trish Wake, John Tyson, and Summer Antonopoulos, who I'm sure you all know. The Wellington North Today and Community Minutes programs we do provide free resources for local nonprofit or charitable organizations to update residents about programs or projects, i.e. the new Wellington North Block Parents Program. Since that was approved, we've had them on a few times already as they search out more volunteers for their endeavor as well. And we're always working with different groups like that to help spread the community spirit around. And then back over to Mr. Mattice.
Okay, final slide. This is kind of a snapshot of where we are now, where we hope to be. Currently, because I'm a glutton for punishment, we're converting and updating our software for invoicing, for our music software and our automation software. And each one of these is a ginormous undertaking, but needs to be done. A lot of the software we're moving to is what the big professional commercial stations use. So it's going to make us sound even better than we do now. And plans for the next 10 years, certainly not inclusive, but include further upgrades to studio equipment. A lot of the stuff we have now is, it's 6 years old already, so it's end of life is kind of in sight, and we need to upgrade some of that stuff over the next little while. Computers, tech upgrades. The station also plans on creating a program to financially support other local charities. It's always been kind of a vision of mine to get to the point where we have enough income to cover all of our costs and have a little bit in the bank for emergencies, and then anything over that we can donate to other local not-for-profit groups. It's kind of always been my vision, and we're slowly getting to that point, almost at that point. That's essentially it. A big thank you to Wellington North Council for being supportive since the beginning and for continuing to be one of our top 5 sponsors and supporters. Happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Okay. Thanks, Rob and Chris. Any questions from council for this dynamic duo?
I'm Batman, he's Robin.
Go ahead, Dan.
Just to comment, you guys have done a terrific job in the last 5 years, and it sounds like you got a good plan moving forward, and it's always a pleasure listening to the radio station. So well done.
Thank you. That's not just because you're listening for your name, is it?
No. I'm better off if I don't hear it.
Sherry?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say congratulations. I remember when this all first started back with Mr. Barrett, and congratulations, and I look forward to listening to the river in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And I'd especially like to add my thanks for your coming and giving us an update. We do hear hear some of the activities that go on at the river, at least I do. But I certainly don't know them all, and I appreciate the update.
So thanks for having us.
Congratulations and thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Karen, for your help there.
Okay. So next item we have on our agenda is adoption of the minutes. So I have a motion, recommendation here, moved by Lisa, seconded by Sherry, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on May 25th, 2021, and the special meeting of council held on June 2nd, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Any questions or comments on any of those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I don't think we have any business arising from previous meetings in today's agenda, so we're right on to items for consideration. I'm so used to us doing public meetings and committee of adjustment. This seems like it's breakneck speed. So let's pull out any items for discussion that we'd like to chat a bit more about. Dan, go ahead.
I'm going to ask for 6A.
6A. Just bear with me for a second. That's the summer program.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have others?
Yeah, 5A.
Okay, that's the fire service modernization.
Yes. And I was gonna pull 1D, but I don't see Steve on the call, so maybe him and I will discuss some of those things in those minutes with staff.
Okay. Anything else? Lisa, did you have any that you want to pull out?
Sorry, trying to stay on mute. No, I had 5A and 6A, and both of those have been identified.
Okay. All right, I'm going to request, let me just make sure I get the number right here, 2C. Uh, 2G. And 6B. Okay, anybody have any others? I'll just do a recap quickly. So we have 2C, 2G, 5A, 6A, 6B. I think that's it. Last call for any others? Okay, so we'll approve the rest. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Dan, that all items listed under items for consideration on the June 14th, 2021 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back to C. This is the consent application V32-21 for Wendy and Paul Levine. And I have a recommendation here. I'll read that to start with. Well, I'm not going to read that whole recommendation. I'll be here all afternoon. Everybody have that one in front of them? I mean, if somebody wants me to read it, I will read it, but this is for consent application B32-21 for Wendy and Paul Levine. And I would suggest that Dan will move that and Lisa will second it. I'm hoping. And open the floor for any discussion. This is not a usual consent application type scenario, so Curtis or Matthew, one of you want to speak to this one just to kind of clear up some of the issues that this one presents?
Sure, I can handle that. So thank you through Chair. I'll provide sort of a brief overview of the file and perhaps my recommendations here. So before you today is a severance application to sever a 2.96 vacant residential lot on private services in Arthur. Vacant 42.5 acre lot would be retained. So the subject lands are located within the urban center of Arthur and designated as FD and zoned FD, which is future development, both in the county official plan as well as the Wellington North zoning bylaw. As I had mentioned, municipal services currently do not extend to the subject lands, and as a result, the applicant is proposing to operate on private services, which would be in contravention of provincial policy as well as the official plan and zoning bylaw. The provincial policy statement provides some flexibility for private services in settlement areas for infilling as well as minor rounding out of the existing development. However, planning staff would not consider this proposal as either or. As mentioned, the property is designated as future development in the county official plan, which highlights an array of requirements which need to be met for consideration. One notable section I'd like to highlight is section 8.10A, which speaks to provide for the orderly future development of unbuilt areas. As council may be aware, in 2018, Wellington North retained GSP Group to prepare the Wellington North Community Growth Plan, which is a strategy and essentially a vision for the future development of Wellington North, and in particular Arthur, where the study deemed these lands as to remain future development. So lastly, the county is currently in the midst of the municipal comprehensive review, which will review community land needs. And as a result, planning staff recommend deferral of the application until the MCR process is complete and an accurate assessment can be formulated. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, anybody have any questions, comments with regard to this one? So just to be clear, the recommendation is a deferral of this proposal at this point, Matthew?
Through you, yes, that's correct.
So this application would remain, I don't know whether active is the right word, but it still would be in the queue. It's just would be deferred until some of these things are completed. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. So until, like I said, our approach is until the MCR is complete, it would essentially be in limbo. Perhaps isn't the right term, but in limbo until that's done, and then things can be revisited, once, like I said, the land needs sort of points into a better direction.
Yeah, okay. A couple of the things that I was concerned about, and I realized that probably we're going to recommend deferral, which I support, but if we were to allow this severance for residential purposes, the land area for a single residence is much larger than we would normally allow within the urban boundary. Also, even though that land's designated as future development, I kind of see that existing parcel is largely employment lands type of thing based on its location and how that fits with the rest of the community. And then additionally, it's also that triangular piece that's proposed for severance is close to some agricultural operations because it is right on the urban boundary. And I have some concerns about the potential conflicts that exist there. Like there's a liquid manure storage that has in the past certainly handled some fairly odorous material, and having a residence that close to it poses some grave concerns for me for the long term. So I hope that some of those concerns can be relayed to the land division committee too, to kind of make sure that this remains on hold till we get some of the details worked out. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Mike?
Through you, Mayor Lennox, I think one other thing that we would probably, obviously, planning and the land division committee will give consideration, and hopefully to our comments, and the deferral will happen. But the other piece that is at play with that location is it's kind of, the idea would be that Well Street is also going to open, which would be adjacent to this triangular piece of lands as well. And then we've got kind of, Wellington Road 14 and Well Street meeting. So I think we'd want, as a township perspective, we'd want to make sure there are appropriate lands to address sight lines and turning radius and things of that nature as part of the consent process, or at least that given consideration as one of the requirements. Yeah, we want to make sure that when Well Street opens, we have suitable lands to allow for the appropriate turning radius and sight lines to be addressed, so that it addresses all traffic concerns at that point. So I think the deferral is the right approach, but obviously we're not the approval authority, so it might be something that we need to convey as part of the conditions. Curtis, Matthew, I'm kind of looking at you guys. Are there certain other comments that we should be making just in case planning and land division does approve the consent?
So through you, Chair, I do have, it's not included in my report, but I do have a list of conditions that are fairly lengthy that, like I said, I didn't include in this package just because of the deferral nature. But nonetheless, we can work offline with including some additional conditions if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that one that Mike brings up is certainly one that should be given consideration because of the geometry of the current intersection. Some additional lands would be really valuable to help realign that intersection and improve it for the future. Okay, anybody else have any other questions or comments? Okay, then I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Andy?
We'll move. Yes.
I need to step out for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan. We'll now move on to 2G. Is that right, Karen? Is that the next one on the list?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so Dan stepped out. I'm going to say this one's moved by Lisa, seconded by Sherry. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the planning report prepared by Matthew Daou, planner, and Curtis Marshall, manager of development planning, dated June 10th, 2021, regarding Cachet Developments, Arthur, Inc. Revised draft plan of subdivision 23T-20202, zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 06-20, 321 Donville Street, Arthur.
So that is set out in two separate parts. So that's the first
Right.
recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, so that.
So this is just receiving the report at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're good. We have another recommendation. We'll discuss them separately. So any discussion on receiving that report at this point from members of council? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And I'm going to suggest that Lisa and Sherry are going to move the further recommendation as well, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North support the latest revised draft plan of subdivision dated June 4th, 2021, and further that staff prepare a subdivision agreement between the municipality and the owners of the proposed subdivision for council's consideration, and further that staff advise the county's Director of Planning and Development of the township's decision. And before I open it up for discussion, there's a lot of information in that report. So maybe could I ask you, Curtis, to give us some highlights there? I mean, there's a ton of information in there.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Lennox. I guess I did use my allotment of paper for that report. So what I'll do here, take you through the report. And as I said, yeah, I'm happy to be here today. And yeah, so I'll start off. I've made some notes to try and keep myself on track and clear in what I would like to describe for you. So council may recall last fall in November, a public meeting was held for the applications. And at that time, draft plan had been presented at the meeting, which included 240 units. And of that 240, 141 were single detached and 99 were townhouse units. Now at the meeting, comments were provided by the public and council, and concerns were raised relating to the proposed density, traffic, impacts to wildlife and the environment, and drainage related to neighboring properties and the general area. So I should mention in my report, we have included 3 different draft plans that represent the 3 that have been submitted. So as I just mentioned, there was an original draft plan that we received initially with the application and was presented at the public meeting. The second one that the county received in March of this year, and this was in response to the comments that Cache had received. And then finally, there's a third and final plan, which is I refer to, and I'll explain later, is the June 2021 plan, and that's the current plan we reviewed. So if this makes sense, I'm going to just talk briefly about the March plan. So this is the second plan that came in. And in March, Cache proposed to reduce the number of units from 240 to 207, and they'd added a park block as part of the development. So in March, this plan was circulated by the county to agencies and the public. I know no comments have been received by the public on the revised March plan. Township staff, township engineer, and the county provided further review comments and feedback on this version of the plan to Cache, as well as several agencies, including the Grand River Conservation Authority. So in early June, Cache prepared a third plan, and that's referred to in the report as the June 4th, 2021 plan. And this is in response to the March circulation. So as Karen's bringing up, there's this is the latest plan, and basically is the subject of my report. So this June plan now proposes 196 units. There's 132 single detached lots, 64 townhouse lots, 2 public park blocks, and a walkway block that would provide access to a possible walking trail in the stormwater management block. In support of this application, Cache submitted a series of updated studies, and those were submitted to the township. So I note this latest June revision will need to be submitted to the county for circulation back to agencies and the public. So this third submission and this plan shown on the screen has been reviewed by the township and has also been forwarded to the GRCA. So at this point, township staff and the township engineer have reviewed the updated materials and are generally satisfied that the technical and engineering requirements of the township have been met or will be met through conditions of draft approval and a future subdivision agreement. So also in support of this revised plan, Cache submitted an updated zoning bylaw to the township for review. And I note as part of my report, there is a copy of Cache's proposed draft bylaw. And there are also some handy diagrams which show a typical townhouse lot and a typical single detached dwelling and how they would be placed on a lot and how they would compare to the current zoning standards. So it's, yeah, Karen's taking us down through
Every page, Curtis, it won't let me advance page by
Okay.
page when I'm doing this. There's the
Bylaw we're going through and
there. Is that what you're looking for?
schedule, and I think we're keep going. There's one more. Okay, so here's the diagrams which show typical lots. And what they show is actually the second revision, the March revision, and the final revision. So the March revision is basically the interim step. They did not have a diagram from the November to current, but the chart also reviews the zoning standards and which ones they comply with and which they would require relief. So in terms of the proposed zoning, planning staff note that the number and scale of the proposed changes to the zoning bylaw have been reduced. For example, in regards to single detached dwellings, Cachet's design now meets the side yard, rear yard, lot frontages, and encroachment requirements of the current township zoning bylaw. In regards to the townhouse dwellings, Cachet's design does require amendments to the zoning regulations and standards, but they are fairly minor and are only and a lot of them are only needed for specific lots such as corner lots. For council's information, planning staff are generally satisfied with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment that has been resubmitted. We know Cachet's revisions have come a long way to address the massing and density concerns of the township and the public. So I think, again, just to briefly summarize the changes to the zoning bylaw, we note the latest submission, the dwellings have been moved further back from the road. So there's an increased setback that's closer to compliance with the current town bylaw. And the proposed side yards and rear yards have also been increased, and in most cases are either incompliant or have some slight reductions. So just to conclude the discussion on zoning, planning staff will be preparing a final bylaw for council's consideration at a subsequent meeting. So as I'm trying to get through my comments, getting close to the end here, and in regards to the public comments we've received, these have been reviewed in my planning report, and those relate to traffic, environmental impacts, the proposed density, and stormwater management. Just to highlight, in regards to stormwater management, there are a few outstanding agency comments and technical issues related to the proposed stormwater management pond. And Cachet is currently working with the GRCA to resolve these issues. Now, I note that these matters will need to have to be addressed prior to the County of Wellington issuing a decision on the draft plan approval of the subdivision. Now, in terms of process and next steps, the role for the township going forward is the County of Wellington requests a position on the draft approval prior to proceeding with a final decision on the subdivision. So the county will ultimately be looking for a comment or an endorsement from the township. And secondly, in support of the application, draft approval conditions will be required from the township by the county, and planning staff will work with the township staff and the township engineer to prepare these draft conditions. And I note that these conditions would address the township requirements that as they might be, and that these will need to be fully addressed prior to final approval being granted by the county in the future. As I mentioned before, Cachet will need to submit the revised June 2021 draft plan to the county for recirculation. And this plan will be circulated to the agencies and to the public for comment. The county also expects to receive a final comment from the GRCA in response to this circulation. And I note if the GRCA is satisfied and that they would then also provide draft conditions of approval, they would forward these to the county.
It looks to me as our entire meeting is froze.